It's a severe weather alert day, folks, as multiple rounds of severe weather are set to affect millions over the next couple of days with strong to intense tornadoes, very large hail, and widespread damaging winds, all possible. We'll take a look at who's going to see what and when, plus the threat of flash flooding returns. We've got a new volcano to add to our watch list, and as always, we'll test your weather IQ and take a peek at the long range. So don't go anywhere. A new episode of Cold Rain's Weather World starts right now. Well, another day, another severe weather threat. What an active spring it has been, folks, and today is no different. An outbreak of severe weather is expected later this afternoon and into the evening hours, and we're going to take a look at that threat and show you exactly what's causing this, and we'll look at the timing of it and who's going to see what and how this is all going to play out, including several other things that I mentioned before. We've got a flooding threat to get into. We've got the long range that we're going to take a peek at. We're going to look at your week ahead so you understand how the weather's going to unfold over the course of the work week. And we've got a couple of other geological events that we'll look at as we get toward the end of the show. In the meantime, thank you for joining Cold Rain's Weather World, the fastest growing new weather show on the internet, and we always will leave you smarter than when you came. One of the ways we do that is by teaching you about the weather and showing you a little bit about what causes the weather so that you can understand kind of some of the mechanisms that drive it. And we always test your weather IQ as well by our weather IQ question. So we're going to start there today, and then we're going to get right on into today's weather outlook. So the question today is about this is a general weather question. So what is the primary driver of the Earth's weather system? Volcanic activity, solar radiation, ocean currents, or the Earth's magnetic field? As always, if you know the answer, type it in the comment section. If you do not know it, all you have to do is simply stick around to the end of the show, and I'll have the answer for you. Well, I hope you all had a nice weekend, folks. It was a nice weekend in Morganton here. After Saturday morning, the skies cleared out. We didn't really get a lot of rain, which is unfortunate, but dried out, and it was very low humidity and nice in the way of temperature department, at least for Saturday afternoon and Sunday. Got to do some stuff. Unfortunately, the Lakers lost because they can't quite execute down the stretch as usual. And so if you're an NBA fan at all, you know what I'm talking about. Minnesota will probably win that series. But anyway, getting in here to the weather, folks, I'll have all the chapters broken out in the description of the video, so you can skip ahead to where you need to, but definitely come back and watch the rest of the video when you get a chance, because it's informative and make sure you understand what's going on for your entire work week and how to expect the weather to unfold as we go through the work week. And of course, we'll look at the long range too and have a little fun along the way. But right now, we're going to start with our satellite imagery, and a couple of important features show up here that you need to take note of. One is the swirl back here in the Intermountain West. This is part of a trough, and that's what's setting the stage for the severe weather outbreak later today and of course into tomorrow as well. But all of that energy out of ahead of that trough, the flow is coming out of the southwest, and we're bringing in rich moisture out the Gulf of cold rain here, and that is going to help fuel instability for our severe weather outbreak. Clouds associated with the low pressure system and frontal zone are back here from basically Idaho and Montana all the way through Minnesota here, extending down into Texas just east of the dry line. And those clouds are producing some rain and thunderstorms, as you can see here by our lightning display. A few other clouds through the Ohio Valley down here into the southeast. We've got a little low pressure off the coast, and that's bringing some showers along the Georgia coast. We could see some general thunderstorm activity across Georgia, Florida, maybe back into Alabama through the day, but nothing severe here. And a few shower or clouds moving in through the eastern lakes. Rain, as I said, is falling here from basically Montana back through North Dakota and into Minnesota, with some of this activity producing showers and thunderstorms. Anytime through the day today, we could see a severe wind gust or a hail stone that meets criteria or two. But really the bulk of the severe weather is going to be this afternoon and the evening. That's when we're going to see maximum wind shear overlap, maximum instability, and set the stage for potentially some strong tornadoes as we go through the afternoon. But right now we've got rain falling, and that's moving into, just north and east into eastern Minnesota, into Wisconsin. We've got rain moving into Michigan as well. A few snow showers in the higher elevations out here in the Rockies, and then that little batch of rain moving off the Georgia coast. Nothing doing for the East Coast. It's going to be a nice clear day for much up of the East Coast up and down, and across the southern areas. There's nothing going on right now, but we could see some thunderstorm activity develop later on out here today. Looking at the hazards map, not a lot of activity here on the hazards map today. Just some wind advisories as that low pressure strengthens. It's up here in South Dakota and moves to the lakes. We'll see gradient winds pick up, and so gusts into the 30s, potentially 40, not out of the question. This is outside of thunderstorms, of course. And then a few red flag warnings where it's dry. You don't want to burn anything. Winds could gust 40s into the 50s out here as well into the plains. So pay attention there. Frost warnings are expiring, or frost advisories are expiring, I should say. And then some winter weather advisories up here, and winter storm warnings where we could see a few inches of snow in the higher peaks. Looking at the surface map for today, there's that low pressure I talked about. This is going to continue to strengthen, push to the lakes. A front will continue to strengthen along the dry line as well. And so we're going to see a large warm sector develop with potential for severe weather anywhere in this yellow zone. We could see winds gusting, strong winds, large hail to very large hail, and tornadoes. Particularly that threat's going to be maximized up here, and we'll kind of take a look at that in a second. But this is where you could see severe weather today. A few snow showers in the higher peaks, general thunderstorm activity along that, and the front that's draped over toward the south, that little wave of low pressure could spark some showers and thunderstorms. Otherwise, high pressure is in control for much of the eastern seaboard. And as we take a look at our surface map, you can kind of see how all that plays out this afternoon. We put this through the day. We see our low pressure strengthen here in South Dakota. That's moving up into Minnesota, into the lakes, bringing those showers and thunderstorms through the day, trailing stratiform rain behind that in the deformation band there. A little bit of shower activity moving into the northwest. But other than that, until we get into the evening hours, there's not going to be anything going on much until we get to the evening hours, and then we'll see some potential activity down here in Texas, Oklahoma, up into Kansas, and we'll watch how that plays out. That's your day weather for today. The other thing, just to hit on briefly, high temperatures. We're going to see highs making it into the 80s, all the way up into the upper plains and Midwest. Much of the eastern seaboard is going to be right on the cusp of 80 until you get up here into the northeast, but 80s across the south, 50s and 60s across the north, cooler, of course, in the higher peaks, and then 70s back in to Washington, into the 80s in the San Joaquin Valley, down to the desert southwest. And then low temperatures tonight, in case you have any planting concerns. Not really going to look at too much in the way of freezing conditions outside of the mountains, except for the upper plains area where we could get down into the 20s again and 30s behind that system as cooler air plunges in. And you can kind of see how things are here in the upper levels by looking at the temperatures. We've got a trough out west, a ridge over the east, a frontal zone through the middle of the country, and that low pressure as it moves east will drag some of this cold weather in behind it. And so that is your daily forecast. That is your one-day forecast for today, folks. Now we're going to switch gears and talk about the severe weather threat that is coming up for this afternoon. And we're going to start by looking at the Storm Prediction Center and what their outlook is. The SPC's outlined a large area of real estate for severe weather through the afternoon. We've got a very large area of slight risk from the Canadian border down here into southwest Texas. This enhanced area that you see here in Texas up into Oklahoma, that's a level 3 out of 5. The moderate area here is a level 4 out of 5. But this enhanced risk was added earlier this morning. And then we've got a large area of enhanced that's essentially from northwestern Missouri all the way up, encompassing all of Wisconsin predominantly, and most of Minnesota as well. And then this moderate risk is where we're going to see a convergence of wind shear, good lift, and good instability, really strong instability later today. And that includes cities like Minnesota, over into La Crosse, Mankato, Rochester, Mason City down here in Iowa. So you need to pay attention and be on guard throughout the day if you're in any of those areas, because we could see some rather significant severe weather. Up here in this area, particularly on the moderate risk, this is where the most confidence that we're going to see thunderstorm initiation and then propagation through the afternoon. Down here in Iowa and even into Kansas, we're going to have really strong instability in this area here. And so anything that develops here could go severe really quickly. The question marks are around what is going to help spark those thunderstorms. In weather, you often have a situation where you've got gas and you've got fire, but sometimes you can't quite get those things together. And that's kind of the question mark here. We need the fuse to get to the match, and we feel really confident that in the moderate risk, the fuse will get to the match. If the fuse gets to the match down here, you could see some explosive supercell development along with long tracking tornadoes. The question marks again abound around whether or not a lot of that activity will actually kick off. And so there is some model disagreement there. Anyway, looking at the probabilistic areas here, tornado, wind, and hail, 15% chance of tornadoes within 20 miles of a point where you see the red area. That's really essentially the moderate risk. And then 10% around that. And this hatched area means that there is the chance of a significant tornado, EF2 or higher. Wind pretty much confined to north of the Iowa border in terms of the maximum wind threat, because we're going to see these little supercells develop and then quickly form into clusters potentially and line segments. That's going to maximize the wind threat from eastern Minnesota up into the UP of Michigan. And then hail, again, a large area of hatched here. So a large area of 30% as well. So the instability and the freezing levels are such that it's going to maximize hail growth in a lot of these storms that develop. And so you could see some very large hail, 2 inches or greater in diameter. And so that's what we're looking at for this afternoon as we go through the day. Kind of looking, if we take a look at what's driving all of this, I told you earlier about that trough out west. Well, you can see it good here, show up really, really well here in the 500 millibar. This is the mid-level flow. You've got a trough here. And you've got another little trough that's kind of working through here like this. So you've got a split flow in the jet stream. This trough is responsible, this northern trough is responsible for the activity that's going on today and will continue to push east through tomorrow. So it's going to help spark showers and thunderstorms tomorrow in the eastern lakes, and it's going to drag a cold front through as that low pressure moves through. So we're going to see this trough play an important role in the features. Out ahead of these troughs, you get this southwesterly flow. Southerly flow brings in moisture and dew points, and we'll see that too in a second. But that's what's going on, and you got these jet maxes as well. See this little jet max here that's moving through. As we go through the afternoon, you'll watch how that flow kind of strengthens. So watch this as we go through the afternoon. Strengthens up over Wisconsin, Minnesota, and that's where our moderate risk is maximized. We get into this evening, still got plenty of strong mid-level flow. This is like a 70, 60, 70, 80 knot jet streak up here. So that wind shear increasing, that increasing of winds with height is often an ingredient that you see in severe weather outbreaks. And we have that this afternoon, and we go on through the nighttime hours. That continues to persist and then just move off to the east as we get into tomorrow morning. The southern part of this trough, you see this is kind of sticking in the mud out here, and it's not moving all that much, and that's going to eventually move out and bring some flooding rains and severe weather as we get on into Wednesday. But that's what's going on today. Looking at our dew points this afternoon, check this out. So let's go back to this morning and then take a look here and watch how the dew points kind of come up. You can see the dry line advancing to the east. The dry line is nice and sharp down here. This could be a focus for thunderstorms later in Texas, which there would be strong instability if that happens, so we could see severe weather. So you can see those dew points pushing in all the way up, mid-60s dew points. That's going to fuel strong CAPE all the way up in this area. So we're going to see strong instability anywhere in that pink area, and that will be plenty of instability to fuel thunderstorms if we have lift, and we certainly do in the upper portions of this area for sure near that low pressure system. And you can kind of see how this rolls through this evening into the overnight hours, and that moves on off as we get on into toward 12 o'clock tonight or 12 a.m. tomorrow morning. This is the significant tornado parameter plot. And just wanted to show you this. So this is for this afternoon. We can roll this ahead and take a look at this. But remember, values over 1 here indicate the potential for significant tornadoes possible. We can kind of back this up a little bit. This gray area is essentially 1. So this orange and red area, you're getting into stronger values, 2s, 3s, 4s. This purple represents like 4. So plenty of sheer in the low levels, backing of the winds around that low, we're going to see a maximum of tornado parameter here, which means strong tornadoes are possible if we can get supercells to develop here. And so you can see kind of how that plays out through the evening. Not 100% sure if we're going to see a lot of supercell activity down here. If they do kick off, the environment's going to be very volatile, and we could certainly see several strong tornadoes through Iowa and Missouri as well. And then the last one here is the helicity swath. So this just shows you where there's rotation in the atmosphere as thunderstorms move, and what thunderstorms rotate as they move along. So look at this. As we get on into the afternoon and evening, this is somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 o'clock. 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock, you can see the threat is through the afternoon and evening. Look at these swaths. So these are swaths where there could be rotation with thunderstorms, again, indicative of a tornado threat. So that's what we're looking at through the afternoon. Any of these storms could rotate, so pay attention, stay on guard, and putting that all together with the reflectivity as we go through the day, looking at this is later on this evening at, or this is early afternoon, sorry about that. This is around 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. We get on into the afternoon hours, and you can see how thunderstorm activity begins to develop here along that cold front. And this is what we're going to be watching. This primary severe weather window opens up around 4 or 5 o'clock. And we're going to see that persist into the evening hours. So watch this as we put this on into motion. You can see some thunderstorm activity down in Iowa, a little supercell activity up here in Minnesota. They'll eventually develop into line segments and clusters, and that will maximize the wind threat. You could have some bow echoes in all of this too. And so we're going to see that threat pick up through the course of the afternoon and then persist over the course of the evening. And so that's what our severe weather threat looks like for today. We've got another severe weather threat for tomorrow. We're going to take a quick look at that, as well as the rest of the week. But first, got a quick did you know, or actually it's not a did you know today, it's a this day in history that will be kind of interesting. So today I couldn't find anything all that noteworthy from a weather standpoint, so I'm just going to throw out a couple of other important historical events that happened today in history. And so a couple of things that I found was in 1789, the mutiny on the Bounty occurred. You've probably heard of that before, but essentially Fletcher Christian led a mutiny against Captain William Bligh aboard the British ship HMS Bounty. Bligh and his loyal crew members were set adrift, and the mutineers eventually settled on Pitcairn Island. Okay, so that is what happened today in 1789. In 1945, during the latter parts of World War II, Mussolini was captured as he was trying to flee Italy, and he was executed today in 1945. And then the last event that I saw that I thought was interesting was that in 1967, Muhammad Ali, greatest fighter of all time, we can argue about that another time, but he's an amazing fighter, was stripped of his boxing title because he was set to go to Vietnam, but he declined, and because of citing religious beliefs, and so he was stripped of his title. So that is what happened today in history. All right, so tomorrow we've got another severe weather threat to talk about. It's not quite as intense as today's severe weather threat, and then we've got a little bit more severe weather ahead on Wednesday, and then maybe we get a quiet period for a while. We might see one more little segment of severe weather potentially on Thursday, but right now just Tuesday and Wednesday look to be the primary days. We've got an enhanced risk for tomorrow up here from Cincinnati to Cleveland, up into Pittsburgh to Rochester, Buffalo, Syracuse. That's where we're maximized really tomorrow, and then a slight risk from Texas all the way up into the essentially the western sections of New England here. Tornado threat, not all that huge. We're looking mostly at a hail and wind threat, predominantly wind. We're going to see some organization and some lift and some instability all work together to create some line segments that produce a higher chance of wind. We still have a hail threat with significant hail, large hail at that as possible, of course, tomorrow. And then on Wednesday, that threat begins to maximize here over Texas as that trough kicks out of the west that I showed you earlier. That will continue to move to the east and spark a low pressure area right around let's call it western Tennessee, Arkansas, something like this. And then that's going to shoot on up to the lakes, as well as everything seems to shoot to the lakes Back in the day, things seemed to shoot along the uh, Gulf Coast, but we don't really see that too much anymore. Everything always shoots to the lakes now. And so therefore, the Midwest and the Ohio Valley and the Tennessee Valley tend to take the brunt of the severe weather, the upper plains and all that as well. But here's our trough that we showed you. That's going to kick off to the east. We'll do this fairly quickly because there's no sense in beating a dead horse. But watch this as we go through Tuesday evening into the overnight hours into Wednesday morning. You see that trough coming in through here into New Mexico. Out ahead of these troughs, that's where you get lift. That's where you get rising motion, and you tend to see precipitation. And then you get rain, of course, and showers and thunderstorms. If I roll this back, look what happens up here. So as we go through the day on Tuesday, this big jet streak that we saw that was creating all this severe weather back to the west, now that's moving through the lakes, and it's flattening out a little bit, so we're not seeing as much in the way of dynamics. We'll still see some showers and thunderstorms with instability and good wind shear aloft, and that's maximized over these areas here that we showed you before. But that's what's going on up there. This trough in the south will kick off, and you see how it moves over Texas, Oklahoma. So we're going to see that low pressure shoot up to the lakes, drag a cold front through. This trough's going to move through and produce some rain showers as we get on into the end of the week for portions of the east. Looking at the secondary problem that is developing is a flash flooding threat. Over the next few days, we're going to see multiple rounds of weather move from Texas into Missouri, so in here into the mid-plains, mid-Mississippi River Valley. This is a little bit west of that. There's a moderate risk. The soil moisture here is already really high, and so rain that falls is going to run off quickly, and we're going to see multiple rounds of heavy rain. Precipitable waters, I'm not going to show you that, but they're very intense out here, and so we've got a lot of moisture to work with, very efficient rain production, so we're going to see high rainfall rates with convective activity. So on Tuesday, we're seeing a moderate risk for much of Oklahoma. That threat shifts just a little bit east into eastern Arkansas as well on Tuesday. Big slight risk as well. So look for multiple inches of rainfall. As a matter of fact, if we take a look here at the surface map, you can kind of see the overlapping of the severe threat on Tuesday with the heavy rain threat along this frontal zone. There's our low pressure. Frontal zone tracks back. There's a dry line back here in Texas as well. But that's what's going to be the primary driver of that rain event. Low pressure is going to develop here as we get on into Wednesday and Thursday. And boom, it's going to shoot up there, and we're going to see, again, heavy rain maximized here over the course of the next couple of days. And you can see that, and there's Wednesday's severe weather threat. That low is going to develop Wednesday, Thursday, and move on up to the Great Lakes, drag this cold front through. High pressure is going to build in behind it, and it should dry things out. And we can kind of see that here on our weather map as we go through. Let's go back here, roll it back to Tuesday morning. Look at this, the front lights up. We've got our severe weather threat up here in New York, back into Pennsylvania and Ohio. And that will move on out as we go through the day on Wednesday. And then we get into Wednesday afternoon. We've got plenty of rain in Oklahoma where our excessive rainfall risk is. And we've got plenty of convective activity back here as well. In Texas, you can see those clusters of storms developing. And then as we go on through Thursday, that rainfall threat will shift east. And then that low pressure moves into the lakes, drags that cold front through. We're going to see rain move into the lakes and be the primary threat there, and then just some scattered spotty shower activity as we get on in through the day on Friday. High pressure is going to build in, and it's going to make it a little bit more difficult for showers and thunderstorms to develop when you start to get ridging in the upper atmosphere. And that's what's going to happen as we work toward the weekend. Up here in the Northeast, we're going to see rainfall associated with that low pressure as they're closer to the dynamics. Looking at the total rainfall production here, let's go back to this display. And you can see Texas up into Missouri here, eastern Arkansas, anywhere in this red area, we're looking at 3 to as much as 5, 6 inches of rain here. So be careful if you receive flash flooding alerts. Know where to go and what to do when you see those, but pay attention over the course of the next few days for all kinds of hazards. Looking at temperatures, kind of wrapping everything up here with our temperature profile. Over the next 5 days, the bulk of the anomalies for warm are going to be over the east, and then maybe into the northwest as well, but a large portion of real estate out west is going to be at or below normal. Looking at the actual temperatures and how that plays out over the next few days, I'm going to get on the right display this time and show you the whole thing. I did it. Always miss this up. But again, 80s and 70s and 80s for much of the east and southeast, and then a little cooler behind that low pressure in that front as it comes through. This is highs for Tuesday. Looking at your highs for Wednesday, much of the same. Little bit of return flow out here, so it's hard to keep us cool in the as we get on in later into spring. The sun angle goes up, but going to be really warm, upper 80s in the Carolinas here across much of the south, chillier across the north as we get into Thursday. That's what we're looking at here. So much of the same here and Thursday, so not a lot different there. And then lastly, on Friday, we start to maybe cool off as that secondary low pressure moves up, brings some clouds and a frontal zone, but still very warm across the southern tier. And finally, getting some return flow out here in the upper, section, the northwestern quadrant of the country, I should say. Intermountain West up into the Rockies and Bitterroots and all the fun little Bighorns mountain ranges up there. So that's your forecast. A little cooler up in the lakes, but that's your forecast for the week ahead, folks. And hopefully all of that is easy to understand. It makes sense. Looking out longer range, 6 to 10 day, the 8 to 14 day looks very similar, so I'm not going to show it. Temperature outlook over the 6 to 10 day period. Now this is the weekend and beyond. Below normal in the northeast and the southwest, much above over the upper plains, and then above down into, let's go back here, down into the south. Below in Alaska, above in Hawaii, and then rainfall above in most of Hawaii, above in Alaska, above out west, much below in the eastern section of the country. And again, this is not considering this week, what happens through Friday. This is like Saturday and beyond. So we're going to monitor we're going to look at the drought monitor as we get later into the week and see how that shakes out too. But that's what's going on. Volcanic activity, our same 4 areas, plus a new one here has been added. What is this? This is the Etka volcano complex. There was some activity up here, and some earthquake, some seismic activity, and they've put this on an advisory level. So now we have another one here in the Aleutians to take a look at. Not much in the way of earthquake activity going on. We have a small little quake in Nevada, nothing big there, but no big quakes. And the sun is fairly quiet. A couple of filaments may turn our way. A coronal hole will be coming back around at some point here, but quiet sun means no geomagnetic activity, not much in the way of aurora viewing. And so, folks, that is our weather show for today. Hopefully it's been informative and you've enjoyed it. We're going to wrap up as we do with our Weather IQ question. And our question was, what is the primary driver of the Earth's weather system? Volcanic activity, solar radiation, ocean currents, Earth's magnetic field. And the answer is solar radiation. The sun drives everything that happens. It heats the earth, and in different places on the earth heat differently. The bodies of water heat slower, the land masses heat faster, and so radiation comes into the atmosphere. Some of it's deflected, some of it is absorbed and heats the ground, and this differential heating causes pressure differences. Wind currents and wind patterns are all driven off of that, and then you have the storm tracks and low pressures and all kinds of micro and mesoscale features and things like that take place beyond that. So it all starts with the sun. Don't let anybody tell you different, folks. Now you know about the sun, now you know about the weather, and of course, as always, this is Cold Rain reminding you that other stations run 24/7. We got you covered 48/14 right here at Cold Rain's Weather World. Take care, folks, and have a great afternoon.